Hello everyone and welcome to another Digimon Ghost Game video. This time I'm going to be talking about this week's episode, which is episode 58, Pyramid, which saw a Digimon spin on the Sphinx that asks riddles and then does something if you aren't able to answer the riddle correctly or in the given time. So of course the Mon of the Week was Ancient Sphinxmon, who was going around and asking people various riddles, and nobody actually ever answered any of the riddles. There was only one character who really noticed that it was a riddle, and that was Hero, but even then he didn't answer the riddle. Everyone else just kind of met being asked a riddle with kind of confusion, which is super realistic. If all of a sudden you heard some invisible voice saying riddle, riddle at night, you'd be like, what's going on? And then when you saw the giant monster, you would probably not be paying attention to anything that comes out of the monster's mouth because you'd be in so much fear. So I do actually appreciate how the characters were kind of like, what? What? Instead of actually trying to answer the riddle. So nobody actually tried to attempt the riddle. It was just kind of met with confusion, or in one instance when Ancient Sphinxmon asks an entire movie theatre full of people, hey, what's this riddle? Everyone just kind of thinks it's a trailer for something and thinks it's really funny and really cool, until of course they're turned to stone in a pretty horrific way. Bits of stone kind of like come out of the body, which is kind of the body horror that we are to expect from Digimon Ghost Game at this point, and then, of course, the characters one by one get asked riddles, like we have Hiro and Kiyoshiro who are unable to answer the riddle, which is kind of surprising that no one, even those two, didn't attempt to answer it. So, of course, they're turned to stone. And this is because Ancient Sphinxmon is using people to build a giant pyramid in order to summon Pharaohmon. Now, the characters that are left over, so Ruli and all the Digimon, go to Mummymon and kind of find out that this is Ancient Sphinxmon, which I really do love that we brought Mummymon into this, because, yeah, he's also kind of got the same theme going on that Pharaohmon and Ancient Sphinxmon do, so I'm glad that he was brought in for this episode. So Ruli then goes and realizes that a giant pyramid has just appeared. And then, of course, the characters try to fight Ancient Sphinxmon to stop him. Now, something that I was kind of surprised that we didn't get here was because Hiro and Kiyoshiro are indisposed, I guess, because they are currently stone, I was expecting us to have another moment of other characters can control other Digimon if they're bonded enough, and they can evolve them or get them to do attacks. But we didn't actually get this. They kind of just were in their child forms and not really doing much, which I can kind of forgive it because it was an evolution episode for Angoramon, but I really wish we had that more. I think we've only had it twice, and it's both instances have been Jellymon. I'm wondering if we'll have more of that ever again, or if it was just those two times we just said, hey, by the way, this is a mechanic that you can use with the Vata Bracelet and in this show, but we're only going to do it twice and it's just going to be with Jellymon. So it's just basically Angoramon who is doing this fight because he's the only one who is able to be controlled by Ruli in this episode. So we get, obviously, Angoramon evolves to Lamotmon and tries to fight Ancient Sphinxmon, but struggles because Ancient Sphinxmon is a Mega, and a fairly strong Mega at that. So Lamotmon tries to protect Ruli and ends up needing to evolve. And the way that they did the evolution, I was kind of surprised about. Like, I'm happy, and the evolution looks really cool to Diabitmon, but the fact that we had Ancient Sphinxmon capture Ruli and then do the old riddle thing, I was like, okay, we're going to have a battle of the wits, we're going to have a riddle contest or something, like she's going to be able to answer the riddle. However, that's not what happened. Lamotmon just starts saying things that Ruli likes, like piano and swordsman novels and weddings and tea, and Ruli joins in and says, there's so many hobbies I want to live and experience, which, that feels like such a weird thing. Like, it wasn't that she had lost all hope or anything, she was just asked a riddle. And it felt kind of like, okay, we're doing the, hey, don't lose hope, you have so much to live for moment, when it just didn't feel like it it just came out of left field, basically, at least for me. I was expecting the riddles to be relevant to her in some way, or maybe he asks something that Angoramon can answer, I don't know, but it just felt kind of like the usual, hey, we have to have them evolve, so let's have them just shout things that they really like Gaomon likes chocolate, Jellymon likes harassing Kyoshiro, and really likes all these things, and she wants to experience these hobbies more and doesn't want to die. It just felt kind of like typical. It wasn't bad, and this wasn't a bad episode. And it wasn't lackluster at all. It did its job. And I did enjoy this episode. However, it didn't really stand out to me as doing anything that was unexpected, or even the things that were expected they didn't do. It was just kind of basic, but not necessarily in a bad way. It was still quite a good episode, and look, I still enjoyed this episode. We then have a moment that I found was a nice character insight into Angoramon, and that's Ancient Sphinxmon is about to basically push Dilbitmon into this dark chasm of death and darkness, basically a portal to hell. But at the last moment, Dilbitmon kind of switches him over and pushes him in instead, and then he kind of reaches out like he wants to help Ancient Sphinxmon. He's like, hey, Ancient Sphinxmon, but Ancient Sphinxmon dies, or at least goes into this portal of death and hell and destruction or whatever. And we have a moment where Dilbitmon looks kind of guilty and kind of bad for just killing a Digimon, which is a nice further insight into Angoramon's character. We know that we've had him have to murder his friend Digitamamon because he was eating people, and we have Lamortmon who kind of just doesn't really seem to care, just kind of is very violent, seems to have a very short fuse, basically needs to be stopped by Ruli every single time he evolves because he's about to murder someone. And we don't have that with Dilbitmon. He has sort of guilt in his eyes from not being able to save Ancient Sphinxmon, or being forced to push him into this portal because it was him or him, basically. It was one or the other. And that's kind of a nice character insight, but that's about it. There are nice insights in this episode, and there are nice moments in this episode, but overall it doesn't really stand out as being a fantastic evolution episode like we've had in the past. But it's not lackluster, and it didn't come out of nowhere. It at least felt slightly meaningful, but not extremely meaningful. So yeah, it's not a bad episode, but I do have some complaints about things that could have been done, at least in my opinion. But overall, fine episode. Not much else to say. It was definitely a fine episode, fine evolution, and he looks really cool. I think I prefer like the Lamortmon kind of like looking like a beast. This one looks a little bit too humanoid. He's got like he's just a dude. I do like that it's a swordsman because really like swordsman novels, and it looks more like Simbara Angoramon, but it looks too much just like a dude, and I'm not really a fan of like when Digimon go from like this is an animal to this is a dude. Like the Agumon bond of courage and Gabumon bond of friendship. I don't like them. I don't like how they go from like animal to this is just a guy. This is a guy in clothes. And that's something that's just a taste thing. It's not like, it doesn't mean it's a bad Digimon or anything. He's fine, but yeah, again, just a dude. And it suits really fine, so it's not too bad. But in any case, those are my thoughts about this week's episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Like this video for Angoramon getting to evolve before, surprisingly, Jellymon. I thought that it'd be a while away, and I guess we're kind of getting into like, it feels like wrap-up time for this show because we're getting mega evolutions and plot, and there's not much filler in between these moments. Like earlier in the series, when we had the evolutions to adult and then the evolution to perfect, those felt at least a little bit strung out throughout the show. They're really kind of going bam 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 with megas, and I would kind of expect there to be a Jellymon evolution next episode or the next episode, on the basis that in this month's Psycho Jump that came out like less than a week ago, we have promo cards for both Jellymon's Mega and Angoramon's Mega, so I'm wondering if we'll just have both of them this month. And we've got one of them at least, so one more to go. So in any case, those are my thoughts for this week. Subscribe if you haven't already, and tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your dad, tell your siblings if you have any. But anyway, that they should subscribe, yeah. So, I will see you in the next video. It is really warm here, and I'm losing my words, so I will see you in the next one, and hopefully I'll be less warm. Bye!